This is my 1990 Honda Hawk GT. I brought this bike along with some of my cars from the US over here to Germany. Now, Germany being in Europe, of course there's a bunch of stupid Euro laws, and as is, the bike is not legal to ride here. So I have to change a few things first. The first and biggest being the headlight. Since this bike was never sold here, it was pretty difficult, actually impossible, to find a headlight that fit. So I had to get a little creative. Another thing I had to do, of course, I had to take my nice exhaust off and put the stock one back on. Over here, the stock one isn't very ugly, but it just doesn't sound very good. So another thing, I needed a reflector in the rear, along with a license plate light. You can see it up here. So yeah, that's pretty much all I needed to do to get this thing legal. When I bought these tires, I made sure that they were legal over here as well. The only thing I'm still missing is some legal mirrors, because of course my nice CRGs are too small, and I am missing one of my stock ones. Not that I want to put that on anyways, they're pretty ugly. Okay, so in order to make my headlight legal, I actually had to modify it. I'm still in the process of modifying it. This is my stock headlight lens. It's made of plastic, and that's not really the issue. The issue is it doesn't have the little Euro test stamp. You can see it over here. It's a little E and then a number. That basically makes it legal in Europe. And since my stock one doesn't have that, the stock headlight by itself is not legal. Now, this bike was never sold over here in Germany or Europe in general. Pretty sure it was sold in England, but they didn't need to conform to the same rules. So I couldn't find a headlight that actually fits my bike from the factory, so I needed to modify mine. So what I did, I took my stock headlight housing. This was the lens for that. It's a cheap plastic one. There's another thing, if you have one of these bikes and this is all milky, since it's plastic, it will weather over time. You can actually change that out. So first I had to pry this little glass, that little plastic piece off the lens. It's just glued in there with some silicone. I got a different headlight, brand new, that does have the little Euro stamp on it, and basically all they look for in inspection is a little stamp. So what I did is I dremeled this apart, took it apart, and took the lens off. Now I'm gonna use the lens and put it on my old headlight housing and glue it all together with some silicone. Now I'm going to put this headlight together. I already figured out the orientation. I'm basically just going to silicone it in place, clean it all up, and then put it back together. Okay, so now this doesn't have to be perfect. Just put a bunch of silicone in there. I don't want any air or any humidity to go in there so it doesn't fog up. So I'll probably put a little bit too much, but as long as it doesn't get all over the reflector on the inside, it's all good. Now when lining this up, you obviously want to make sure that all the writing on the lens is horizontal to the bike. So sometimes it's a little notch. This one actually has it. It's a little notch to line it up. So this makes it a lot easier, as well as the lens itself has a little notch on the bottom, so I can line those two up pretty easy. Now you obviously want to make sure that the inside is completely clean, as well as the reflector. The reflector is very sensitive, so I cleaned it off very lightly. It was kind of dirty, but I want to avoid scratching it. So it's good enough the way it is right now, and I'm ready to place in the lens. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to line up the two notches on the bottom. And put the lens in there. I'll wiggle it up and down a little bit just so the silicone gets around the edges as well. Okay, there we go. This isn't the best of job. I put a little bit too much up here when on the inside, but that's no big deal. So next I'm going to put this little metal trim ring on. This also is going to need a little bit of silicone on the inside. There's still some residue there from the old stuff. I'm only going to be putting a little bit because it's mostly held in place with these little tabs on the side. Important with this is I'm going to put this little joint piece on the bottom just so you can't see it. It's going to tidy the whole thing up a little bit more. Okay, so now put the silicone on. Put it on some paper towel here. Just use the end of this brush. Pick it up and put it in here. So you can see the edge on the inside got a little messed up when I was taking it apart, but there's another trim piece around that, so that's not too big of a deal. So now I'm going to line this up at the bottom. Can't do it right at the bottom because there's this mounting place. Okay, let's push that on. Okay, there we go. Headlight is back together. I'm gonna get some brake clean and clean off all the excess silicone on the outside because we don't want that hardening and messing everything up. go. There's a beautiful new headlight. Well, old headlight that is actually legal here. I can put in my new headlight. Okay, there we go. Now the last piece is this little screw. It goes in here on the side, and this is what actually holds the headlight in place. So right now, I can rotate left and right. Okay, so now it's ready. Okay, here we go. It's time to put it back in. Let's disconnect this. The screws. Okay, let's check. Yep, works. Okay, line up. Number one. And there's number two. There we go. And there's the new old headlight all finished and put in. Of course, let's make sure high beam, low beam both work. Beautiful. Done.